Welcome to our session today. I'm Ingrid Neach, the Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator for Zone 28, and along with my colleague, Joanne Ventura, who is Coordinator for Zone 32, we're delighted that you have joined us on this call today. So great to see familiar faces, and as we do, we always have a few little announcements and sharing some information when we start these sessions, which is always fun to see. Special welcome to all the members of our foundation teams that are also on the call and that will be helping us with this session tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce Steve. I know he's well known to many of you, but I think it's always nice to have a little reminder about his many talents and his expertise. Steve has been a regional grants officer with Rotary International since 2014. And he currently works with grants in zones 32 and grants 2 and 3, which is in Japan, zone 8, which is Australia, and zone 32 in the USA. He handles district grants, outgoing grant scholarships, and incoming humanitarian projects, as well as all related grant reports in the districts contained in those areas. Steve graduated from Knox College and has an academic background in Asian history, world religions, geopolitics, and economics. He received a scholarship from the Japanese Ministry of Education, a master's degree in environmental management at Kyoto University's Graduate School of Global Environmental Studies. He has worked in international development as a consultant, implementing projects for the Japanese International Cooperation Agency while he was stationed in Thailand, Fiji, Ethiopia, and Brazil. In his free time, he has free time, I think, occasionally. He enjoys listening to podcasts and spending time with his family. And interestingly, he is also an active member and officer of the ORO Toastmasters Club. On a personal note, I am so grateful for Steve and his expertise that he has shared with us as a great resource at our Zone Action Summits the last couple of years, and certainly as sessions like these that we are going to enjoy tonight. So Steve, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. Much appreciated for your kind introduction. So everyone does have the ability to unmute yourselves, but everybody should be muted just to start off. As I get our presentation rolling, we are recording, and this will be available on the Zone website as it has been in past years. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is a presentation. Specifically, we're going to focus on the district grant tonight, but this is specifically for all of you in zones 28 and 32. This is not a replacement of the grant management seminar, so this is an addition to that, but I do hope that this will be helpful for you if you are involved in as a district officer that's managing the district grant, or even if you're a club member who's involved and wants to know more. I'm hoping that this will be useful for you. So let me start with introducing some of my colleagues. So Ingrid already gave me a very nice introduction, so let me see if I can do something at least somewhat similar for my colleagues here. These are you'll see on your screen 3 regional grants officers and our payment coordinator that work with your zones. There's myself, Steve Sundstrom, and then also Renee Reiling. She probably works with most of you in Zone 28. And she's been a grants officer since 1997, and she also works with the United States, the Caribbean, and the Bahamas. Then we have Cecilia Walter, who has been with the Rotary Foundation since 2013, and she manages grants taking place in districts in the United States, Canada, Philippines, and Japan as well. She's Zone 1 in Japan, I'm Zones 2 and 3 in Japan. And then finally, you'll see our payment coordinator, Grace Walquist. I thought she definitely deserves to be included here so that you all know her. She's been with the Rotary Foundation since 2020 and manages grant payments for the USA, Canada, the South Pacific, and East Asia, quite a large portion of the world. Just to give you an idea of what's happening here in Evanston, Evanston has 23 regional grants officers, or we call ourselves RGOs for short. And we're paired up with each of the 523 districts around the world. So, but collectively, between myself, Renee, and Cecilia, we cover over 200 of those districts. So we get to see quite a lot of variety around the world. Some of our grants officers are, maybe they're only covering 1 or 2 districts that have a lot of grant activity in just that one place. But for the 3 of us, we really cover many different districts. That means that we work with a lot of different interests. That means that we have a lot of communication and we try to provide a lot of support like this too. So thank you all for your interest and participation in things like this. So tonight in this session, like I said, the main focus is going to be the district managed grant. And I say managed to just put the emphasis on that it's the districts that are managing this for the most part. I will start by going over some of the basics on district designated funds, how grants are funded, a comparison between district and global grants. We'll look at some statistics from last year in comparison to the year before that. And then we'll start to dive into the terms and conditions by the Rotary Foundation in comparison to then what will be more the focus of the second half. A quick review of what we did last year. We did a grant survey that many of you participated in. And then taking a look at some common elements that are in each district for managing your district grant, just to give you a better idea of the types of things that people are doing to adjust or make the district grant useful to your members. And then we'll have some time for discussion or questions. Sorry, I have questions on there twice. Okay. So first of all, I think most people know this, but just a quick review, how grants are funded. It's through the SHARE system, where we receive a donation and then it is invested for 3 years. And after that, it goes between the World Fund and the district designated funds. I like this particular slide because it shows the World Fund is really trustee discretion and the district designated funds is district discretion. So that's how we divide those up. The World Fund is used to match district designated funds for global grants, of course, that's an important part of it, but also towards initiatives like Polio Plus and Rotary Peace Centers. Then for the districts, your districts can allocate up to 50% of your DDF in a given year. That's along with any spendable earnings from endowments towards your district grant. And then the remainder of that can go towards global grants or donations to other Rotary initiatives, again, such as Polio Plus, Peace Centers, disaster response would be another. I created this sort of a fake report, but if you go into My Rotary and log in, you can access foundation reports. And one of those is very important for planning purposes, is the DDF by district report. So in this one, I used some round numbers, if you can see those on your screen, showing that top line, showing 47.5% of annual fund share contributions, that whole thing, and 99,500 I made it. So it kind of makes it easy to show. Then with endowment earnings of say $500, you have DDF of $100,000, right, as an example. So half of that you'll see in the other highlighted area would be $50,000 that could go towards your district grant, right? So just a pretty straightforward example there. But this particular report does show not only those numbers, but some things that you may have already in the works, such as transfers of DDF to the Disaster Response Fund, you can see there, or Polio Plus, that P2PP is to Polio Plus. So this is DDF, right? Then you'll also see other allocations to global grants or past district grants, return of funds. A very useful report I'm sure most of you are aware of. If you're not, check it out. We have a new addition to it now that shows carry forward from previous program years. So you can see that where it says 2020, 2021, 50,000. and each year showing. We have those in buckets now because, as many of you are aware, we are asking districts to use their district designated funds within 5 years. One thing that I want to make sure that everybody is aware of is in the October meeting of the trustees. You can find this on my Rotary in the trustee minutes for October if you search this language, that they've made an exception. So there's such a large amount of DDF in the 2020-2021 bucket that they are allowing districts to make transfers to programs like Polio Plus, the Endowment, Disaster Response, the Rotary Peace Centers, or to World Fund, starting immediately through 30 June 2026. So that's from now through the deadline to use that oldest bucket of funds. They're allowing districts that have an excess amount of that oldest bucket to start using it before you exhaust current DDF. I know that's a little bit more detailed than we need to get into for a district grant discussion, but I just want to make sure that people understand that update. And I'm happy to clarify if you need that clarified. But like I said, if you go and look at the trustee minutes, you'll find this language that I have in the banner at the bottom of the screen. Okay, quick comparison just to go over what global grants are. These are more complex interventions using grant funds, and we're looking for measurable results at the end of the project. These are aligned with one of our 7 areas of focus. They require an international partner, a minimum budget of 30,000, a maximum World Fund match of 400,000, for example. The World Fund is matched with district designated funds at 80%. So this is a very complex program. And it's kind of, in some ways, it's the crown jewel of grants. It's where we invest a lot of energy. That's what I mean by that. We do have other grants programs, but the global grants is meant to be at the forefront of what's available for people to make an impact, right? And that's one of our, for Rotary's action plan. And I'll go into more of this tomorrow, which will be the focus tomorrow's global grants, but we want to make an impact. Global grants are designed to do that. And we have district grants, and that's the focus for tonight. So each year you have the ability to allocate up to 50% of your DDF. It's one lump sum during the year that districts will receive according to an approved spending plan that the foundation takes a look at, approves, and checks. And we'll go over those details today. So the district grant is intended to support many kinds of district and club projects. It's intended to be rather flexible. So that's why it says they're broad eligibility. They can be, not necessarily, but they tend to be more small scale and short-term projects. And that's mainly because of that annual timeline. And they can be local or they can be international projects. These activities are meant to support the mission of the foundation. That's the requirement. But for example, not necessarily an area of focus. So that would be one comparison. The global grant must follow an area of focus. The district grant is the mission of the Rotary Foundation, which includes things like improving people's health, providing quality education. So it's similar to the areas of focus. They can also support scholarships of any level. So where global grants support only graduate level, a district grant could support a scholarship for a high school student. Again, broad eligibility, flexibility. Vocational exchanges can be done in a global grant. There's a lot more requirement around that. For a district grant, it could be almost any vocational subject. It doesn't have to be a formal training, for example, but again, broad eligibility. Okay, now to get a sense of some of the scale of what our grants are currently at present, I want to take a look at some grant statistics. We're going to look at last year's numbers for 2023-24 first. So these are the official audited statistics. You can find that in our on our website. but just to show you here with some comparison, I wanted to give you. So we had 485 district grants approved in the last program year, and that was $31 million, right? That's all from district designated funds, of course. In comparison to the year before that, we were up 13 grants. So 13 more districts received their district grant funds than the year before, and that was an increase of $3 million, right? So that's kind of a nice small trend upward. For global grants, last year we saw 1,287 grants approved. That's up 195 from the year before that. So again, last year we saw a little bit more activity. It was $82 million total in program awards. That's an increase of $14 million. So again, upward increase. Disaster response grants, we had 106 last year. Compared to the year before that is a decrease by 218. The reason for that being that we had a special fund for Ukraine support, and that was very popular amongst our members. So without that, last year, there was a decrease. So for $4 million to support disaster response grants, a decrease of $11 million compared to the year before that. And then, of course, the last one is programs of scale. These are handed out once a year. We've had 4 awarded at $2 million each. So this year we'll be awarding our 5th program of scale award. And just a few more statistics for more up-to-date. For those who are interested, people tend to like this because we don't release these, until the end of the year. But right now, this is kind of where we're at. The unaudited grant statistics. I did it through December 2024. It was kind of hard to get the numbers for the end of January since we're at the beginning of February. But district grants, again, we've already approved 336, which is no surprise because most districts do apply for the district grant the first half of the year. This is pretty much on trend for last year. So we've already awarded 24.3 million. The global grant, we've awarded 544. They've been approved. This is slightly up from last year. We had an increase in applications approved in July, a slight dip in October, but for the most part, we're seeing a slight increase. Disaster response grants, so far we've had 41 approved at 1 million. And programs of scale, like I said, that'll be decided this year. Okay, now we're going to get into what the foundation requires. And after I go over with the foundation, I'm going to pause and see if there's any just like clarification or something just for 5 minutes. And then we'll go over more about districts, like I said, that second half. And then we'll have more time for questions. In the meantime, if you see something or if you've already written something down, you can put it in the chat. Very helpfully, ARRC, Randy, is going to be monitoring that as well. So we'll make sure that we get an answer to all your questions. But yeah, feel free to put it in the chat or jot it down, and there'll be some time for you to unmute yourselves and ask a question. So we're just starting here with the foundation terms and conditions, district qualification. I think most of you, if you are a district officer, you're most likely aware of this. This is done through My Rotary. Who has to do this? It's the district governor-elect, and the Rotary Foundation chair. It involves completing the district qualification memorandum of understanding in the Grant Center and conducting grant management seminars for your clubs, either in person or online. As many of you know, we have a learning center, and that can be part of your grant management seminar to your clubs. An important thing to consider here is that many of your districts have additional rules that you want your clubs to be aware of. So, the grant management seminar and the learning center is not going to contain that. So, of course, how you communicate your additional rules or what you need your club members to know is an important part of the district grant. If there's any questions about how often you have to do the district qualification process, if you're a district Rotary Foundation chair, of course, your term is 3 years. You only have to do the district qualification one time, right? And then it will carry over. As a district governor-elect, when you do the district qualification, it carries over into your year. And then the next year's district governor-elect has to do it for your district to remain qualified. So hopefully it's pretty straightforward there and makes it easy. People don't have to do that every year. But what I want to add here is that we do have a relatively new requirement for District Rotary Foundation chairs. And now District Rotary Foundation chairs, you already do a lot. Thank you very much. If there's anybody that I work very closely with, it's usually the DRFC. That's where I'm emailing, I'm having phone calls. Of course, you have a team of people, hopefully, right, that you don't have to do all of this alone. But we are putting a lot of emphasis on the DRFC position, and part of that is requiring that the DRFCs complete Learning Center courses by 1 July this year. So if you are going to be the DRFC on July 1, by July 1, it would behoove you to complete the District Committee Basics course, the District Rotary Foundation Committee Intermediate course, and the Grant Management Seminar course in the Learning Center. You can do it after 1 July, but your district will not be qualified until those are completed by the DRFC. So that's new. You do not have to do that every year either. You know, if you're doing it for 3 years, once you've done it once, you've met the requirement. But we would encourage the DRFCs to do the Grant Management Recertification course every year, because that's going to contain policy updates. So again, I know there's so many things that you have to do, especially as the DRFC, but we are trying to present more resources for DRFCs in particular, because we don't have a lot of in-person support, but we have a new handbook. We have some training that's coming up. We've done some webinars, and we do want to support the DRFCs. So this is kind of the counterweight to that, is making sure that everybody has that basic level of information through these 3 courses. It was decided. Okay, now a quick look at what the application itself looks like. If you've logged into the Grant Center, you've seen this. There's a drop down when you click apply for a grant, and you'll see district grants 2025, 2026. If you haven't clicked it yet, if somebody in your current trio, the district governor, the district Rotary Foundation chair, and the district grants subcommittee chair, those 3 people start the application and can fill it out. If one of you has already clicked it, you won't see this drop down. And that means go check your drafts in your My Grants list. Probably somebody already started it. And then you can continue to fill it out. But you click there. Your max award should be visible now in January, prior to the Rotary year. If you were to apply now and have it approved before July 1st, we can get payment out as soon as possible in July. Some districts do that. Some districts wait until after July 1. Quite a few do, actually. But the latest you can apply would be the 15th of May of the Rotary year. So next year, 15 May would be your 2026 district grant. Nobody encourages you to wait that long, though. Earlier, the better. And like I said earlier, the share system is sort of designed to allow that 3 years of investment, and looking at the DDF by district report to see what you have coming in the pipeline, and working with your clubs, maybe a president-elect, to start planning out what's going to go on your spending plan. So what goes on your spending plan? Here's an example. This is one that I just kind of pulled at random from a district grant that I thought was a pretty good example. Here you have the club name. This is the category of education and happening in the United States for $4,000. It's a literacy type project, and then they have a description there, and the beneficiaries are children and youth. What we're looking for, and what's in the terms and conditions that a district grant must require, or that a district grant needs to include, is we need to know, when I say we, the regional grants officer is looking for what will be done, what the grant funds will pay for, and who is benefiting. That's laid out in the terms and conditions. And I thought this was a perfectly good example of that. So here, if you were to read through this, you see what's going to be done. This whole description tells us, they're going to be providing some books for a school. Okay, it even says the name of the school. What will the grants pay for? I have there in bold: purchase classroom books, general circulation books. Very clear. And who's benefiting? It's going to assist classroom teachers. It's going to benefit the 3rd and 4th grades at that school. right? So this one's pretty straightforward, but those are the general elements that we're looking for, especially you might have a very nice project description and we know what will be done, and even who will be benefiting. But sometimes people forget to add number two is very important for us to know what will grant funds pay for. Sometimes it's a larger project and the grant funds are only paying for a smaller portion of it. So if you can clarify that for us, it usually speeds up the process a little bit. We try to give you the benefit of the doubt and figure it out, but maybe we email you and ask some questions, right? So that's part of that is what will be done, what are the grant funds paying for, who's benefiting. And then here, many of you will be familiar at the bottom of that spending plan. I have an example here again. Say Peru, United States. These are just examples. If you have those projects, let's say it totals up $10,000 of your spending plan. Below that, there's two categories. There's the administrative fund and the contingency fund. So contingency shows up first. That's 20% of your total spending plan. So the example that I have on your screen is, let's say your whole spending plan is $10,000, just to make it simple. 20% of 10,000 is $2,000. So you could enter up to 20% for your contingency fund. Those are undefined projects as of yet that you can apply for during the year. And I'll go into more detail in a minute. Then you have administrative funds, which is up to 3%. So if you have, let's say your spending plan is $10,000, 3% of that is $300. And you can spend that on administrative costs for your district to administer the district grant. It can include things like software that you use to manage your district grant. Sometimes people have to buy a printer or something like equipment along those lines. Administrative funds could be used for things like that. Stamps, I mean, like really, it's kind of a broad term or a broad list of things that can be used for administration, but it's to administer the district grant out to your clubs. The terms and conditions themselves, if you've looked at it, we have two sets. We have the terms and conditions for the global grant. We have the terms and conditions for the district grant. And the district grant one itself is 10 pages long. So we're not going to go over all 10 pages today. Obviously, if you counted up all the items that I, as a regional grants officer, almost know by heart because I look at this so often, there's about 23 items of eligibility and 29 items of ineligibility. So I'm reviewing for all of those things. I'm looking at travel policies, conflict of interest policies, and more. But what I have on your screen here are just some highlights. These are the things that I see most often. And if these are at the front of your mind, you'll be on the right track. So number one, I just included this one as kind of a standard club qualification. The foundation does require that your clubs have signed an MOU so that they have good stewardship of grant funds. If they receive district grant funds, they have to know how to manage those and with good stewardship, and they have to be in good standing. So a club cannot be suspended and receive district grant funds. That is just for them to be in good standing with the foundation, not necessarily reporting on a global grant. We'll get into that in a minute. Project activities and expenses need to take place and be incurred after foundation approval dates. So this doesn't happen too often in your zones, but a district may say this is going to be included in the spending plan, and a club misunderstands that they can begin the project. The project cannot be started until the regional grants officer says the whole spending plan is approved. So we can't approve them piecemeal in the beginning. It has to be the whole spending plan, and then clubs can start. So again, it's good to start your district grant earlier in the year. And then there is some flexibility during the year, which I'll get into in a minute. Not funding another organization. This is in the terms and conditions, and that means the operations, administrative costs, or program costs of another organization. A very easy example, because a lot of districts do this, is to support a food bank. We cannot just hand over a check to a food bank and say, help the people that you help. We do not want Rotary to write checks. We want Rotary to be engaged and enable members to get involved in their community, right? And what they care about. They may care about the food bank, but we want that to be for specific items. So a lot of clubs, many of you know, will actually directly purchase the food items. And then the next bullet point I have on there is active member participation. Maybe they make a day of service out of that. They bring the items, they pack the items. That's a perfectly fine district grant project. And then the last one on there is no continuous or excessive support. I get questions about this one a lot. The basic tenor of this rule in terms of conditions is that we do not want the district grant to be to have other organizations depending on it year after year. We don't want to create an expectation that it is coming. We want the district grant to be directed by the members of the club. What do the members of the club want to do? Not what another organization expects. So it's fine for a club to support, like that example that I gave earlier, supporting a local school by buying books. They can support the same school every year, but as you might have noticed, it was 3rd and 4th graders. They're going to be supporting different 3rd graders every year, right? So there is some flexibility in how you're interpreting that as district officers. Continuous and excessive support doesn't mean that you can't help the same organization year after year, but make sure, number one, that it's being done because that's what the members want to do, and it's not just what they do because that's what they've always done. And number two, that there's not an expectation that Rotary would pull funding or something like that. It's supposed to be year after year decision. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll pause in a second here. And lastly, we have some items for special review. Now, if you have any of these types of things in your district grant, it's going to usually require some additional information from that the regional grants officer is going to ask the district officers. Rotary youth protection. Of course, we want our youth to be safe, especially if they are traveling or there's any overnight involved. And we want to make sure it aligns with our youth protection policies. If you have youth traveling or spending overnight somewhere outside of your district, especially, we're going to check to make sure that the other district is certified for youth protection and following all of our recommendations. So we're going to ask questions about that. It usually doesn't take more than a day or two. So hopefully that's not too much of a problem considering the importance. Any Rotary conflicts of interest. This is from our code of policies. And we just want to make sure that everything is fair and above board. Usually it's, if you have questions, I can help clarify. That's all that's required there. Rotary travel ban list. The point here being that sometimes the description, another example would be Ukraine. You might be supporting Ukraine by sending money, but nobody's actually traveling to Ukraine. We have to make sure nobody's traveling to some certain countries. Like we don't want any Rotarians to go to a war zone, right? So we check for travel ban. And then the next one, also I'll use Ukraine as an example for the U.S. Office of Foreign Asset Control, or OFAC. Because the U.S. Treasury has them on a list, obviously the U.S. and Ukraine seems to be very friendly, right? Nobody's saying that we don't support Ukraine, but we are saying that we have to monitor how the funds are being used. We're not supporting any military operations, but we can support, say, a hospital. So we would ask for details of all who are handling grant funds, from the district to the club to a vendor, maybe the vendor to the hospital. Just for that example in Ukraine. And we check those, and then we pay out the money. That's our due diligence as required by the U.S. government, and Rotary International is a U.S. organization, but any charity wants to be, in compliance with their government's laws. So that usually only takes a couple days as well. And then the final one is India Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. If you are sending money to India with your district grant, we have to ask for a certification number. Again, something that can be checked online. It's usually pretty quick. And well, finally, the reporting stage, and then we'll take a quick break. We ask that you report on all award disbursement. And I put on there, including contingency. So sometimes people misunderstand that 20% contingency they can use that money without telling us what they're doing with it. That's happened here and there, not too much in your zones, I don't believe, but in the reporting section of the district grant, you can request, there's a button that says new spending, and any RGO can walk you through this to add new spending onto your spending plan so that you can report on all funds and how it was dispersed. The second bullet there, we have seen this from time to time. I just wrote do not in capital letters because this happens, and it's pretty messy when it does. Is a district will have, say, $5,000 left over of the district grant, and they'll donate it to Polio Plus. But you can't do that directly. You have to return the funds to your DDF, and then your DDF can be donated to something like Polio Plus. But we can't do it directly because essentially you're taking a district grant that's intended for the community and giving it back to Rotary, right? So Rotary grants officers are always thinking about this stuff. We'll support you on how to handle it best, but do not contribute directly to another Rotary program with district grant funds, please. And then if you have unused funds at the end when you're reporting of $1,000 or more, return it to the foundation. It goes back into your DDF account. If you find out later that some of your clubs did not spend the funds, that's okay. Retrieve it and try to return it in one lump sum. I would say, as an example, 24 months later, right? And if it's over $1,000, it's just going to go back into DDF again. If you send it, $100 at a time, I can't guarantee it's all going to make it back to your DDF. So that's one reason. Try to return funds over $1,000 at a time. That makes it easier for us. So I'm going to pause there. We're at 36 minutes past the hour. I'm going to take about 5 minutes here if there's any really pressing questions, and then we're going to go into more about your districts in particular. So Randy, let me go to you. Did you see anything in there?
Yeah, there's a couple questions to the group and then one that was sent directly to me. So the first one to the group was the requirement for the district foundation chairs for the learning center.
Yeah.
Does that also include the club foundation chairs?
No.
Okay.
That's the requirement by the foundation is only for the district chairs,
Right.
the district
Okay.
Rotary Foundation chairs. Yeah.
Okay. The other one that was on is can one Rotary club give money to a second Rotary club for a project the second club is running? Will that money qualify for a district grant?
Yeah, that's a great question because it does happen with some frequency. We don't have any rules against it. I would say that just like giving it to any vendor or non-Rotary entity, the club who received the funds, the district grant funds, is responsible for the funds, right? So, for example, if you were working with a club in India and you sent them funds and we didn't clear the, special certification that's needed for that, it's the club in your district is responsible for those funds. So that hopefully that answers the question. Basic answer is it's okay for you to work with another club, but make sure you have a plan for getting receipts.
Okay, thanks. And the other question that was brought up to me directly was, does a club have to donate to the Rotary Foundation to qualify for a district grant or a global grant?
The foundation doesn't require that, but we are going to take a look at what some districts require. And I think it's very common for some contribution for because of course district officers understand this. You might have 100 requests and you have a smaller pot of money and trying to figure out how to divvy that up. If you have clubs that are giving, they might be first on the list. We'll talk about this more on Thursday when our stewardship manager is going to be on the call. But we've talked about this every year in these sessions, and I can say that the bar for qualification has to be attainable by all clubs. So if you are requiring contribution to participate in the district grant like that, it cannot be something that is unattainable by clubs. And also, it's not quid pro quo for like if you give $1,000, you can get district grant funds. It's if there is a contribution to the foundation that qualifies you to participate in the grant program. So it's for qualification, and then from there, operation of the actual district grant are some of these rules we're going to go over in the second half here. So hopefully that's clear.
Okay, thanks. And one more just came in. What is the maximum amount of money that can be spent on a district grant?
There is no maximum amount. That's up to the districts. The maximum amount from the foundation perspective is 50% of your DDF for that year. I will say that from time to time, we've gotten very large activities on a district grant, and there's only a limited amount of space to explain what that's doing. Like I said, we're looking for what's the project going to do, what are the funds being spent on, who's benefiting. If it's a large amount, as a regional grants officer, I might have some additional questions, but there is no limitation.
Okay, so it's the district that really sets the guidelines on the maximum match
Yeah,
that they do, for example.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Great question so far. And I just saw Barbara ask about the percentage. That's the 47.5% is from when contributions come in. I can't remember exactly what year they made that change. It was a couple of years back at least. So there's some that's going towards the operations and reserve to try to build up the reserve, I believe. And then after that, it's 50% and 50% from World Fund to and district designated funds. But yes, you have to pay close attention to you know, what's listed on those in the DDF by district report. You'll see that number 47.5%. Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
So that's everything.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much, Randy. That's very helpful. So let's continue on to the second half. So first, I just want to thank these three gentlemen from last year. They jumped in and gave a talk about how their districts manage their district grant. That was very helpful. We did a survey that was answered by 41 different DRCs and DGSCs. We found out that, for example, that 48% of the districts last year were dispersing the funds at the end of their process, right? Versus some that might disperse up front. And we found out what some districts are doing, some differences between districts, how to manage the grant, some common elements. So that's what we're going to look at here. And just starting off by, it's a fine balance. I understand that all of your districts are trying to figure out, here's the Rotary Foundation requirements, and then here's what our district is requiring to manage the district grant responsibly. So for example, the club MOU is something that the Rotary Foundation supplies. We expect that all clubs are going to comply with that and be in good standing. Those are the foundation requirements, but your district may then require that all the clubs are up to date on reporting, or they have put certain information in Club Central, or as Randy asked the question for many of you, I'm sure, that there's an average amount of giving to participate. So these are some of the different elements. Looking at everything that we have gathered over the years, mainly through these webinars, but some other information I took a look at, I would divide this up into 4 categories. So some of the common elements, we have qualification that we've pretty much gone over, some of the limitations that are set on how funds are dispersed, some incentives that you can consider, and then the actual process of dispersing the funds, again, like upfront versus after the fact. So just starting with qualification, this is kind of an interesting one. We could further break this down into subcategories. To qualify, how are the clubs doing on reporting or learning or agreements that you may have with them or their goals? If we break it up into those 4, for example, is the club current on their reporting? For example, do they have any global grants? Are they up to date on that reporting? Have they entered their club officers in Club Central? learning? Have they participated in the grant management seminar? The foundation requires that they do, but you may add who you want to participate in that grant management seminar. The districts may say it has to be the president-elect, or it has to be the primary contact of any global grant, or it has to be, you know, the club foundation chair. Some districts are making these requirements. Agreements, we could say, you know, that certain responsible members sign the club MOU, or 2 club officers sign the club MOU, or there's a district addendum that you have them sign, right? So those are certain agreements that everybody understands how you're going to run your district grant. And then goals, you may have them enter club goals or the annual fund goals and club succession plan. Randy,
Steve.
sorry, you had something else? Yeah.
There was a question that came up about MOUs. Do MOUs need to be signed by all clubs contributing to a grant, or just the lead club?
I think that is a question regarding the global grants. So just to make it clear that I don't think that applies to the district grant. The foundation doesn't require clubs to sign an MOU when contributing to a grant. There's no MOU involved in contributions. I guess as a good foundation, we make it pretty easy to contribute. The MOUs are usually for management of something. For global grant, it comes in to when you're working with a cooperating organization. We'll talk about that more tomorrow, but straight answer to your question, Linda, is no, we don't. The foundation does not require MOUs to be signed by clubs contributing to a grant. Okay, some of the other elements that I mentioned are like our limitations, and then I put incentives on this page too, because I just have the one example. But some examples here: the number of applications per club. Maybe you're going to allow only 1 application per club. Maybe you'll allow 2 or more. A limitation to the amounts received, right? Maybe you're only giving the same amount to every club, no matter what. A maximum request of project budget by percentage. This seemed to be a common element for many districts to say, tell us your entire project, and then we are going to fund up to 50% of that, right? It could be a percentage of the maximum. Some districts are not supporting scholarships or say RILA through their district grant because, for example, you have a separate fund that's outside of the district grant for that. There could be various reasons for it. But I just want to make the point that some districts are doing this, and this is something your district can do, adding these additional rules because of something local special to your district. The foundation wouldn't say that, but your district might. Activities must be sustainable. The foundation doesn't require district grant activities to be sustainable in the same way that global grants are, but your district might want that because sustainability is great project management, so that could be part of it. And activities must align with an area of focus. Again, not a foundation requirement, could be a district requirement. And your own definition of what that alignment is for a district grant. Incentives, grant maximum could increase if certain conditions are met. I think a common one for that would be seeing different grant maximums for local versus overseas activities. For a simple example. That would obviously, it might be incentivizing international activities. And the last grouping of common elements would be dispersal. We've covered some of this already, but we have, if you're dispersing the funds up front or only after completion, sort of a reimbursement or a mix. So maybe you're giving them half the money up front, and after they've turned in their report and all their receipts, you give them the remainder. This is up to districts to decide what works best, how you're going to work with your clubs. It obviously involves a lot of footwork. So what do you have time for, right? You could have, your district may have a schedule for project completion. That means you expect your clubs to complete their projects by a certain date. I don't have this written here, but it's in the terms and conditions. Clubs have 24 months to complete their projects by the foundation's count. You might not want to wait 24 months. So your district might say you have 12 months. Schedule for report completion, not only project completion, but getting a report to you. The district's responsible for having all the receipts. So you may have a schedule, a deadline for that report completion. Maybe you have a planned second round. You might find out that some projects are not going forward or canceled. So you might have a planned second round, and you might have reallocation. So if you find out at a certain point in the year, maybe February, say this time of year, that you have $10,000 that are not distributed yet, you can make a second call and reallocate those funds without returning them to the foundation, right? And then we have that process that I talked about earlier to make sure that it's cleared with the foundation by adding new spending to your report. But these are all things that your district can do if you have the time and put in the effort to add these things. And I think many districts do. So these are common elements that the foundation doesn't require. So again, I'll just show the categories that I had there: qualification, limitation, incentives, and dispersal. I tried to keep it simple, but I think these 4 categories are some of the ways that you can start to think about how different districts in your zones are managing the district grant. We don't have time in our last 9 minutes here, but maybe in a zone meeting or a district meeting, if you have groupings of districts, to start talking and comparing. Maybe it will help to start categorizing. What does your district do for qualification, for limitations? And then start sharing piece by piece what's going to work for your district, right? So we've all heard a lot of examples, I think, in these meetings and other places. So hopefully this will just help for some exchange of ideas to better serve your clubs. So I'll end my presentation there. We'll take questions and get some discussion. I'll stop sharing so we can all see each other better. And Randy, your importance is skyrocketing right now. Is there anything in the chat that I need to know?
Well, I'll tell you, I have no questions in the chat, so I think it'd be best to open it up.
Excellent. It's great. That either means I did a very good job or people lost interest. But let's see, what comments do people have or questions that you might have jotted down or have on your mind?
I think you helped me get some topics in my head for the next institute. I really appreciate the fact that you suggested that we talk about the flow chart in the districts and see what kind of best practices we can come up with from that. Because I've seen a lot all over the place. And
I unfortunately wasn't there last September, but the year before that, I heard some great exchange of ideas in some of the sessions we had. And, in the moment, it's kind of hard to jot it down. But if it was planned or some other way to capture some of these ideas, I mean, the districts for everybody here, the ingenuity, you just want to steal these ideas left and right.
Well, here may be a question that somebody might have thought about. It used to be that we couldn't get our new money before our old money was closed, but now we have a 2-year window instead, correct?
Well, let me clarify. So we still can only have one district grant paid at a time.
Okay.
So you do have to close your previous district grant before payment of the next one. There's a number of reasons for that, including commingling and just making sure everything's reported on. But what we do allow is an overlap. So you can have 2 district grants that are open at the same time, waiting for the reporting to be finished up and closing the previous years, but already having the subsequent year approved so that clubs can start.
Okay.
So yeah, there is that works very well especially for districts that apply early, so that you can have some overlap. So for example, you might not report and close out your current year district grant, let's say this year, until June, but you could apply for next year's now.
Right, but then they're just hold the funding until they get the final one, the other.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
That's why they allow the disbursement of funds. And I've used that only a couple of times in my 11 years so far. If a project didn't get completed, because our policy is you don't get your money until you actually complete, which solves a lot of problem of trying to retrieve money that you talked about, because if they all of a sudden don't do the project, then it's trying to get the money back from the club and in order to disperse to another club. So, but at the end of end of April, if a project is bogged down for some reason that they're not going to complete it, so they have all the receipts in, we will advance them their grant because it's only a portion usually of the project. And then we can close off the grant. And I want to give a really good shout out to Renee because she's just been wonderful for me, helping me along the way and keeping me on the straight and narrow sometimes because we do it every day for our clubs, but we don't do it every day looking at the big picture that Renee and Stephen and the others do, having to look at all of us and trying to keep us in line.
Thanks,
But
Bob.
thank you for yes.
One of the questions that I think, Steve, has come up every year and at every institute is this qualification of whether a club needs to support the foundation before they can apply for a grant.
And
And
our
that has,
district,
I
we
know
do.
that there are various different ways, but perhaps you might want to just clarify that again.
Okay, it's not in the MOU. We cannot put in conditions in the MOU, but we have terms and conditions because we have three grant avenues, I guess. One is RILA and youth programs, which is their inbound exchange, scholarships, and then projects. And we have terms and conditions from each one that spells out what your maximum matching grants are, what you have to do as a club in order to qualify. And we been using in our club $50 per capita. So that doesn't mean that every member has to, as you know, it doesn't mean every member has to cough up $50. But I have one club right now, one person that cover off the whole club with their contribution to the foundation, because as you know, on the annual fund, they give you your club total plus the per capita. So, and we have a March 31st deadline for them to do that. And I just sent out the reminder today.
Thanks, Bob.
That's a
Steve?
great example of sort of how we can get, because like all the details that Bob just put out there, and I know Bob is a Rotarian of 40, is it 48 years?
49.
49. And between you and Renee Riling, who's been with the foundation since 1997, I mean, we got a powerhouse, putting heads together. But Bob talked about the different programs that you may have, but just keep in mind, it has to be attainable by all clubs, has to be equal across the board to participate in grants. And then when you're deciding on how to disperse funds, you can make different considerations.
That's great. Steve, I think we've all really appreciated your presentation and certainly the details that you have shared with us. I'm going to ask Joanne to do an official thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, for your excellent advice and making it very clear. And it's something that we all should be reminded of going forward, no matter how many years we've been in Rotary. Our support from the grants officers and from our Rotary donor officers is phenomenal. You all work so hard, and spending the time to answer our stupid questions is certainly appreciated. But in any event, I hope everybody can come back tomorrow and hear a little more about global grants. But I think most importantly, our third program on Thursday is stewardship. And I think that I'm going to make a plug now. If you have not registered for that, we are going to hear from the people in the stewardship department. We're also going to hear on how they can help us avoid problems. So I wholeheartedly encourage you, if you haven't signed up for that module, to think about it. And if at least sign up so we could at least get you the recording quicker. And very happy again to have spent this time and appreciate all the work you've done, Steve. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Yes, thank you all. And we will
everyone.
look forward to seeing you next time.